Amazing. Okay, we are officially live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the very first Marketer Live. I am so excited to be starting this off today of all days, April Fool's Day. But also just want to give a very quick shout out to our fantastic sponsors, the Webby Awards, who are really helping to promote this program as we talk more and more about the future of work and how we hire creatives and hire marketers and build teams that help move organizations forward. And my goodness, what better way to start than with Miki here. So this is Miki Agrawal, the founder of TUSHY, as well as THINX, as well as Wild. You founded 3 companies, written 2 books, been on Fast Company's Most Creative People. I don't know how you do all of those things. And I'm sure it is often with the help of teams. So we're going to be diving into that a little bit today. But Miki, thank you so much for being here.
So happy to be here with you in Austin.
Together. In Austin. We're both in Austin. She's near a lake. I'm near a park. Very similar. First things first, again, you've started 3 businesses. You've written 2 books. You've been on some of these amazing lists that, people dream of being on. A lot of times hanging out on LinkedIn, on Twitter. There's a lot of stuff out there that, make it look like, that kind of success is often generated by one person. But I do really want to talk to you today about, how you think about building your teams, building the people around you. I know you were a professional soccer player as well, which teams very important there too. So where do you start? What do you look for in a first hire as you're building an organization?
Yeah, I think it's very different across the board, right? And you learn as you go. Like, I definitely have had a lot of experiences, both good and bad, in the hiring process. First with my restaurants, and with THINX, and with TUSHY. Each business along the way, I've learned so much about the process of hiring, the importance of background checks, the importance of understanding who people are, and the importance of looking at people's social media handles and things like that, actually going into their social media. How do they write? How do they, are they snarky? Are they do they love life? Are they shit talky? Are they, what kind of people are they? And if there's a smell, like initially I just oh my God, we're so busy, we're growing, come join the team. Whatever, come. And then lots of, potential problems could arise versus, for me, when I really think about the start of the hiring process now, it starts with what kind of person is this who's interested in joining, the company team?
How do you figure that out? You're talking a little bit about social handles, but are there any questions that you've learned to ask in an interview process that might help?
Yeah. One of the questions that I always ask is, if your manager was to put you in sort of a row of people, like best to worst, where would you put yourself, in the line? And then just see what they say, first, and it's okay, so you're the best in the company. Awesome. Tell me, why do you think you're the absolute best person, number 1 on the team, versus oh, I think I'm 3 or 4. It's okay, well, what would prevent you from being a number 1? And what are things that you can improve on? So it just sort of by having them self-rank is a really interesting thing, because then you can also tell if someone has an aggrandized ego, if they think they're number 1, but then they've only worked somewhere for 6 months or a year, and they don't really have a ton of experience. It's also interesting to kind of catch how people think about themselves. And if they really truly are hey, if you ask everyone on my team, who the A student is, and they would probably say me, that, I'd be okay, great. That's great. I'd love to understand why you say that. Well, I'm really organized. Yes, I'm a really great team player. I'm always, deliver things on schedule. I do it with a smile on my face. I'm super collaborative. I don't have an ego. I can both manage up and manage down. These are all things that we look at, and ultimately having a generative, positive outlook on life. Someone who's not necessarily a social justice warrior type person who's constantly trolling on other people's pages, that type of person, would be a little scary to hire, because it's sort of someone who gets offended very easily It's a very hard person to work with versus someone who's just collaborative, easier, kinder, happier, generally has a positive outlook on life.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you're looking for people who know themselves decently well and can explain, those positive characteristics of themselves, or even explain away some of the negative ones, and turn those into something that could be good for team building.
Absolutely. And that's it. It's just like, do you know yourself? Do you know how to
Right.
handle yourself? Do you know how to still be yourself when faced with a few different tasks at hand? How do you experience overwhelm if you don't,
Right.
if you get overwhelmed with a lot of tasks, can you prioritize in a way that makes you feel not overwhelmed? You to manage yourself when you feel pressure or stress. Like, do you
Right.
sit down with your seniors or leadership and say, hey, I seem to have a lot of priorities right now. Let me figure out if I put together a list of priorities in an order which I think makes most sense for the business. What are your thoughts? And then I would say, wow, thank you for being proactive. I really appreciate that. As opposed to someone's like, I'm overwhelmed. You're giving me too much. Like, sorry. Like, no, like there are those people who get really intense and upset and feel like, offended by how much you're putting on me versus like, someone who actually thinks for the business, is generative for the business, which often comes with experience,
Right.
and that's also a thing that I learned over the years with brand new junior is not the most ideal for fast growing companies. It might be good for very, very beginning when everyone's learning, but for fast moving companies, unless there's real senior leadership in place to manage each department really thoroughly, working with a brand new person is often so much more difficult, or the level of entitlement, you don't know what you're going to get version versus someone who dealt with a lot of tasks, a lot of feedback, a lot of, things to do, and can actually have the voice and say, hey, like I've got a lot on my plate. I've decided, I've kind of put it in a priorities list, take proactive steps. Like I've put it in a step-by-step sort of like kind of, this is new deadlines because I have so many tasks at hand. I only have two.
Well, and the remote work world too, right? Like it's so important
to be communicative and to be
right.
okay, telling your manager like, hey, like I'm getting a lot of tasks. Let me just reorganize it for you. Does this work? Because I'm only one person, and I can also, I might need help. Can I bring in another person who has maybe a lighter load to help me with these lower tasks while I bang out these more prioritized tasks that you're asking for? So just like people who, again, can be at the table with you and not feel like, oh my God, you're steamrolling me. It's too much. I can't, versus someone who can really advocate for themselves in a way that's additive and productive, not advocate for themselves by saying, I can't do this. How dare you give me two, like there's two types of people. And so I've dealt with them all. And I'm only choosing people who I can, we give graphic design challenges to, we give marketing challenges to before anyone gets hired. We give everybody challenges.
Yeah. What do those marketing challenges look like? And are they different for specific roles? Like how does that work?
Yeah, for senior roles, it's more obviously higher level thinking. We're entering a new channel. How would you think about entering in this new channel? We're entering, like here's a big, huge data set. How would you analyze this data set? What would you put your money in based on this data set? What would you, where would you continue to spend more after looking at this data set versus less? Like for email strategy, like what would be, how would you think about putting an email drip campaign together? If we're looking at a holistic brand, what are all the different channels you're looking at, whether it's out of home, TV, direct response, whatever it is, like how do you allocate spend if you have X amount of dollars? And, like how would you think about testing? How would you think about allocation? Stuff like that, where we just kind of understand how they think. And oftentimes those are like, this is a big challenge. I wanted to get paid for this, or I don't want to do this. It's too much. Great. We just learned so much about you. You're not our fit, so people who's like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait to dive in. Like I'm chomping at the bit. Let's go. that's the kind of person that we want to do this challenge and then likely get the job, so.
Right. Right. Well, so Tushy is your third company. So you have learned a ton about hiring people through all of those experiences. For Tushy in particular, do you remember like what that first marketing hire was, whether it's full-time, freelance, agency, like what were you kind of pulling in first?
Yeah, well, I always think that before you pull in an agency, having a marketing person on your team to advocate for you and on your behalf, because agencies often work with multiple brands and aren't necessarily thinking day in, day out about your brand holistically. Like they might say they are, but they're often not really. They're kind of, and they're people just like you and me. So obviously we'd rather have somebody who's like totally immersed in a brand to then dictate some of the, and pull some levers with the agency who's actually executing on some of the day-to-day stuff. So
right.
For me, I mean, in the very beginning, we didn't have a lot of money. It's like, what's the least expensive person we can find? Who's the hungriest person? Who has a can-do attitude? Who's like, I'll Google it. I'm YouTubing it. I bought the book on I'm figuring it out. I'm like, I just entered this class. I'm taking this Zoom, like this whatever class, whatever it is, like.
Right.
I'm like, we give them a problem and they're on like YouTube, like watching things till 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure it out. That's great. Like, that's the kind of person I want versus like, someone who's, like a tenured marketing executive who A, costs 10 times more, which we can't afford, or B, is set in their ways and are not willing to see what else is new and interesting and exciting out there. So really to find somebody who's young, or not necessarily young, but hungry, who's can-do attitude, who is a good communicator, who can communicate, liaise between the agency and with leadership.
And be the advocate for the brand.
Be the advocate for the brand. And so be like a level of like cool factor to know what's cool, like what's good for marketing or not. Is important. But ultimately, like, it's all hands on deck. In the very beginning, we're all marketing, we're all PR, we're all design, we're all, all,
everyone wears all the hats, all the marketing hats.
Yeah, we always say in the very beginning, like each person has to be like a Swiss Army knife. You have to have at least 3 jobs. You have to know how to do 3 jobs. Otherwise if you're like, I'm sorry, that's not my job, then that you're not hired. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, well, I mean, it's so fascinating because, I talk to people a lot about how they build teams, and there's a difference between like how you would build like your ideal team if you had like all the budget in the world, but nobody has all the budget in the world. And so budget is really the limiting factor. And it's often kind of this chicken and egg scenario where it's like, okay, if I had the budget, I would invest in this channel, but sometimes you want to hire people in order to prove channels out. How have you kind of dealt with this decision on when to bring on additional headcount as a company is scaling, and manage that budget side of it?
Yeah, I mean, we always were like, we're the most. I mean, I've raised barely any money for all my businesses. And they've all grown to over $100 million, so like with almost like raising nothing. And so it's being creative, and it's basically, like using the retained earnings to grow the business. And if you're not making money, then, and you're trying to raise money to make money, or to show that like, oh my God, I just raised $5 million, but like, did you make any profit? No. It's kind of like a weird world that we live in right now where, it's all about like scaling without being profitable. And I get it. And there's a point in which you might become profitable, and people are betting on the might become profitable part.
Right.
I'm just too Indian and Japanese and, to do that, where like I've been taught from day one to be like solvent financially and to be like not to spend less than you earn. And so I've just never been one to raise a shit ton of money. That's just not my bag. So, and we've always been, profitable. And so for me, it's really like, what avenues are the most profitable within our business? And like, is this person now that's working on this job, are we leaving money on the table because they don't know what they don't know? And we should bring somebody else in just to take over that role and move that person to a different role, or things like that. we just figure out like when people reach their limit of knowledge and we're like, okay, we're leaving a lot of money on the table with certain areas in our business and we need to up level. Like, so we're always looking for people who have more experience. And of course, as our business grows and we have a bit more money to spend, we can keep hiring people who are fitting that role. Although I will say with Tushy, you know, I did hire a CEO very early, just because, you know, I had a crazy issue with my last company, and I just needed some space, and so I wanted to have sort of a buffer between me and the team, and so I hired a CEO to sort of play that role, and then he, of course, were partners with my COO, and so the three of us really have like three like legit, you know, people with lots of experience in the room.
Yeah. Have you found that to be helpful?
Oh my God. It's like, I think about my last company and it was like me and a bunch of people with no experience, you know, with a very little, like a couple of years and a lot of ego, you know? And so really hard in that space when everyone has an ego. So with Tushy, I feel like the older we get, the less we know, you know, like the older we get, the less of an ego we have. Like the more older I get, I feel like I don't know anything, but I know a lot, but I feel like I don't know anything. I think that's what where you want.
Well, it's like you're just more aware you're more aware that you don't know what you don't know. And that's probably a huge bucket.
Yeah. When you're young, you're just like, I know everything. Mom, dad, you don't know anything. I know everything. You know, it's kind of like that mom and dad, like, you know, like defiant, like, what do you know? Like kind of world. And I think like that ends in your 30s, you know, like when reality kind of sets in a little bit more. And so, and no, that's not true. There's a lot of young people who've lived a lot, who've had a lot of experience, and it just depends on the person. So, but I will say that by and large, you know, hiring people with a lot more experience than the super juniors has been like a sigh of relief for me, even if in the beginning, because you know, for me, like in the beginning, like I had an ego and I was like, I could just hire a bunch of young people and I'll train them all and I'll do that. And I was way in over my head too, thinking that I could do it all because I wasn't tamed in that way. And so now I'm like, okay, like I can't do it all. I know like my domain. I want to bring in people who can, you know their domain, and we can really be in our zones of genius.
Right. Experience humbles you. is I think what you're saying. Yeah. Tushy in general, it sounds like, you know, all of the companies you've been running, sounds like is growing very purposefully, right? You're very thoughtful about where you're putting that money to grow certain channels, so on and so forth. How have y'all thought about, you know, full-time hires, freelancers, agencies, when you're looking to bring marketing help in? You know, how do you decide on one versus another? How do you know when one project is good for one of those versus another? Like what are those conversations internally sound like?
Yeah, I always think like, you know, I mean, we've had our agency for a while now, and I think usually it's supposed to be like 1 or 2 years and you switch agencies. Like actually that makes the most sense because then you get fresh blood in to give fresh new ideas versus like, and of course the more money we make, the more they get, but then they're not like, they're a little bit more in their heels. You know what I mean? Like people get comfortable in their places when they're like, wow, we're just, you know, like making a ton of money now. Like we don't coasting. And so like, we don't ever want anyone to coast. And so anytime someone looks or seems like they're coasting, a conversation needs to be had. Like maybe you've hit your limit of what you know, or maybe we need to transition to another role, or maybe, you know, something or other needs to happen because, you know, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of generative things happening right now. So I think I would say full-time for marketing, one in the beginning to then interface with an agency, you know, who can do some of the things. This person needs to be able to also like do the beginnings of the emails and the beginnings of like, you know, so there will be a lot to do. So then, you know, eventually there'll probably be 2 in-house that work with the agency, one who really focuses on email and, social, and the other one who focuses on more like the ads and things like that.
Right.
And then agencies, like I said, it's good to kind of change them up every couple of years. We haven't. And so it's kind of, we're due, but we just hired a CMO. Thank God.
Nice.
Who is amazing. And I can't wait to return. She's exactly what I've been looking for. Hungry, excited,
Yeah.
can do.
Well, tell us
like,
about that search, right? I mean, there's a ton of organizations, trying to figure out how to hire, especially senior level marketers or CMOs. Like, how long have you been looking for somebody? What has that search been like?
We've been looking for like a year. We've been looking for a really long time for somebody who both gets the irreverence, who understands our goals, who understands the pace, who's not even just like understands the pace, but loves and excited about the pace of a fast growing brand. Like someone who's like chasing a carrot as much as we are. We're all chasing a carrot together. And, I think for me, it's energy. It's all in energy. If someone has like generative energy, like that's, and of course, a ton of knowledge. I mean, this woman, she just kicked ass with her challenge. We had to put a 30, 60 day challenge together, 30, 60, 90 day plan. Like, what would you do first 30, 60, 90 days? How would you like think about the business during these periods, being inserted into already a fast growing company, not just starting from scratch, but like, how do you actually see yourself coming on, and what do you plan on doing? And it was just like, the thinking around it was so clear, thoughtful, actionable, and not pie in the sky, and well delivered, and with a lot of enthusiasm, and not too cool for school. Like, a lot of people who are at this level are like really too cool for school, and I just can't handle people who are too cool for school at all.
And it's also not a good thing to be in marketing, because there are always so many brand new channels you know nothing about that you need to go learn.
Exactly. But also from an attitude perspective, like, those people, it's like, I don't know, like, I think we need to do this, or like, there's just so many people with so many different personalities, and I can just now see it on the face, like what kind of person they are. And this girl is like, this like, put me in, coach, I've got this. And it's like, and she's a CMO, and it's like, for a CMO to be like I'm like a bat out of a cage, like put me in, like, I just like, that's not an ego, that's enthusiasm, that is like fire, that's driven, that's not being like, like, I'm the CMO, I've been doing this for 10 years and know what I'm doing, like, I've got this, like that. Versus like, like, I want the like attitude versus like that, I got this, like,
right. Well, so we've talked a lot about the personality side of it. Now, THINX, TUSHY, right?
It's everything.
Right. But like both of those brands can be brands that are awkward for some people, or they help spur conversations that can be. I mean, is there a passion component to it that you're looking for, or a like willing to like be outside of the box that you're looking for?
People who are willing to say poop, people are willing to talk about it, people are willing to be like super down with breaking taboos, not even down, but like enthusiastic about changing culture with us. Like, this is a culture shifting opportunity that comes for a lot of people once in a lifetime. It's like, I get to change the way Americans go to the bathroom forever. Like, what a proposal, like, what a thought, and it's like, to go from like generations of using dry, disgusting toilet paper. I mean, just quickly, the analogy I give is, imagine if you jumped in your shower, did not turn the water on, and just used dry toilet paper. And you're just like, I'm clean, and just like,
yeah.
Like, the fact that we're using dry paper to wipe the dirtiest part of our body is just insane.
Yeah.
And
I will say, I just moved to a new house, and the very first housewarming gift I got was a TUSHY.
I don't know whoever got that for you, but best housewarming gift ever. It actually
a very good friend who loves her. She was like, you have no idea.
I love that. No, it's game changing. So it's sort of like, that's it. And it's just like the level of enthusiasm has to be there to shift culture. the level of enthusiasm to talk about something that's taboo, and the level of enthusiasm to jump on board and like roll up the sleeves and like, let's go attitude. Like, that's what I want. I interviewed this candidate yesterday for design, and I was like, so tell me about yourself. And she was like, so yeah, I just graduated from university, and I have some experience, and I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
right. Like, be excited.
I'm like, we're having a conversation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, I don't know what to do with that. You know what I mean? Right. Versus like people think that they have to be cool in an interview, when actually what the leadership is always looking for is genuine, not fake enthusiasm, genuine enthusiasm, genuine can-do attitude, genuine problem-solving skills. Like, hey, I have too many priorities. Let me organize. I have a lot going on. Let me figure this out with you. Before I complain to you, let me give you some solutions that I can support, that I've thought through myself, because I know you got a lot going on as leaders of a company that's growing like this. I totally understand. You've got so much on your plate. So I've taken it upon myself to think through how can I can reprioritize myself instead of putting another thing on you in a really like entitled way. So like, there's like that kind of, I want like, like right now, luckily on our team is like enthusiastic, can do, yes, let's go, like game on vibes people, which is
important for startups. I mean, startups aren't easy.
Which is why
I guess I don't know if TUSHY would still be considered a startup too, but
there's been a natural attrition of the ones who aren't that way, who are like slowly making their way out of the company. And it's like, it's just, it makes a lot of sense for us, because who's left, who's there is sort of like, just the most excited, and so it's sort of like, and we're bringing in like, it's just sort of like, as you grow really, really fast, like any business, my last company, I just was like, you have a pulse, come on the team. Like, oh my God, we're so busy. Like, anyone with a pulse, like just come. And that was just not, that wasn't the way to do it.
Well, how big is the TUSHY team now? In particular, how big is the TUSHY marketing team? So you just hired the CMO.
Yeah. So we're still very tiny. We're 3 people on the marketing team. And
wow. Three full-time folks?
Yep. And so we're basically hiring 6 more right now.
Whoa, doubling.
Yeah, we're hiring 6 marketing people, and it's just
more than doubling. My gosh, my math is terrible. Continue.
Yeah, no. It's like, we're so grateful that our CMO joined, because now we can actually build it out, because because we're so particular about who we hire, and because we're all such, like, we just want the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed types who are also with experience. It's like a very specific type. Now we have a CMO who's like us, who's like that, who has this like effervescence, energy, excitement, who can then go out and hire that type of person versus, having someone else hire out people who are not like that. You know what I mean? And we're just very now particular about experience and energy. It's both.
Well, so yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that experience side. So as you are, I wanted to ask a little bit up on what does the TUSHY marketing organization look like? But it sounds like whatever you could even tell me now will be different in like a week, 2 weeks, so on and so forth, which is fine. How do you think about building marketing organizations in order to hit, specific marketing KPIs? And I know that this is different at every single organization, definitely different between different industries like restaurants and e-commerce, or e-commerce and technology. But, there is, a brand side of things, kind of that creative, there's the writing side, there's the actual getting things across the line side. Like, how do you think about different functions and how you build a team to be really effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the more diverse, the better, in both in skill sets mainly. Like we want people who really like complement each other, right? So it's like like we have uh whether it's like a mix specifically for marketing, like a specific email person, a specific social media person, an influencer person, all of our different Instagram, Facebook direct response channel person, having
Right.
a subscription specific person to manage all of our subscription business. I mean, it's such low hanging fruit to build our subscription business that we just haven't focused on yet. We have 3 products that are subscription based that can be 10x, 20x what it currently is, because we just don't have a dedicated person for that. So we're just like really going in and like being like a senior level email person, like like someone who can really almost own these departments. And then as they need people, they can hire juniors underneath them. But we want to,
because they can communicate well and talk to everybody on why they need those people.
that's right. That's right. And so what I've learned over the years is, even if I'm really undercapitalized and don't have a lot of money, you can still engage somebody who's more senior with something like a little bit of equity or things in the beginning that they have skin in the game. They're like, I've worked a corporate job, like that, like for example, my CEO was making probably 5 times what he was making at Amazon than coming and working on my startup at, like that was, 3 years ago when we were still pretty pequeño. And so but I gave him equity in the business. And that was enough. That was enough of a carrot that now he's just like so excited because it's worth so much. So that's why I found somebody who is willing to work for 5 times less, but have a much bigger carrot that can, you know what I mean, change his whole entire life. And so,
well, you have to find the people that like that speaks to, right? Because it's not going to work for everyone, but it will work for a lot of people.
Yeah. So exactly. So you find the people, because there's 9 billion people on the planet. Like you'll find one, who really wants to who really is down with that.
So we have a live question, if you don't mind me asking it real quick, just because I think it's fun, which is, what so far has been your favorite ad for TUSHY or that TUSHY has put out?
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, it's like the I'm an asshole video. Let me see if I can pull it up. It's basically, we made this like butthole character, and it's just a silly video, but it like we flew up to Canada, shot it for super cheap, like something like under $10,000 US for the video. And it's probably gotten like, I don't know, 40 million views or 50 million views. And then here's the other video
what was the like inspiration behind it? How did the idea come up for it? And then beyond that, how did the development for it come together? I mean, that work can be hard for folks who haven't done it before.
The first one with the I'm an asshole video, that was written by our lead writer, who came from Upright Citizens Brigade, and the costume was made by my Burning Man costume designer. Like, I mean, it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things, like, let's just make something weird and show stopping.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. And the second one was the Danny video, which is what I just sent you, Time to Get the Clean Poop Program people. And that video is basically, also costs us very little. And it's, at this point, it's because it's been around for 3+ years. We've had so like millions and millions of views between Facebook, YouTube, commercials, all the things. This one, I was like I was doing elliptical at the gym one day, and I was just thinking about it. And I was like, what's the easiest way to get to people where they feel like disarmed a little bit? And I was like, oh, children. When children talk about poop, when children talk about things, it's like, how dare you, than if it's like a parent, my kid right now is 3. All he says is poop all day long. It's like, mama, poo poo. And he goes, oh,
it's so cute.
Hi, Dada, poo poo. So it's like this really funny, that's all he says is poo poo and poop. Like, it's all he says all day long. And so I'm just like, kids make it funny and make it fun. And just like, so I was like, what if we told a story of a kid who's so confused as to why his parents are using like dry paper to wipe themselves? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Right.
And so I had my friend write the script, and then, had another friend's production company shoot it, and kind of threw a lot of favors, really cheap, like kind of thing.
Right.
And it's been an evergreen, incredible video for us that's just returned over and over and over and over again. So these two videos, are huge, 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 huge. Have been huge.
I think Ryan Reynolds is a genius / creative marketer. Is there anyone else who you admire, follow, or just love to see what creative things they're going to do next?
So basically, this is a quick story. We basically tried to do an outdoor subway campaign in the subways of New York City, and they banned our ads from the subway. And when I was at THINX,
I remember that. Yeah.
The story of when they banned our ads in the subways, and basically we went to press with the story, and the story went viral, and it really put us on the map. So when the public transit system banned our ads in the subways again with Tushy, we were like, fuck it, let's just use the same strategy and see what happens. So we went to press and said, hey, like, this like, they're banning Tushy bidet because you're saying it's a sex product. And we're like, it's basically like toilet paper for your butt. And they're saying that you can't promote it in the subways because it's a sex product. And we're like, no, you didn't. We're going to go to press. And so the New York Daily News ended up picking up the story, which was like kind of like a New York thing. But what we didn't realize was that Saturday Night Live, they basically like go through the dailies of like New York newspapers every single day just to find funny stories. And they found the story, the New York Daily News, and Michael Che, who's the head writer of SNL, was like, I can't believe they tried to ban this like a bidet in the subways because they said it's a sex product. Like, I'm going to come on SNL myself and do a 3-minute rant about why this ad should have been approved in the subways.
So I think these subway ads are great. People need to know about bidets. I just got one and it's changed my life. It's glorious. Food tastes better. I can jump higher. I want children now. I'm a better person. The first time I used it, I cried.
And it could, on SNL, Weekend Update, 3-minute segment for Tushy. And it was like, and every time it went on rerun, our sales shot up. Like every time it went on rerun, it was just wild. And the biggest thing that happened to us was the toilet paper shortage in 2020 during the beginning of COVID.
What did y'all do for that? Were there any creative strategies or anything, or did you just see, sales start going up?
Yeah, I mean, people just started posting actually themselves, like, we don't have to worry about it because our butts are clean with Tushy and we're using our Tushy towel and we don't have to even think about it. So haha. And so we just sort of like amplified some of those stories of just being like, hey, like we didn't want to like capitalize on a pandemic. And so we didn't do anything different except for say like, our doors are open, we're selling bidets. If you don't want toilet paper, have like,
or you can't get it.
I get it. So basically we've spent the last 6 years like getting people to kind of like consider it, like think about it, decide if they want it. And then during the pandemic, like everyone came and bought. We had our first like several $1 million days during the pandemic, which was insane.
Yeah.
Completely changed the game for our business. And we're at a completely new normal since, because people finally decided to buy it. And then they're like, we can't go back to toilet paper because I feel disgusting going back to toilet paper now that I've actually washed my butt properly with the Tushy bidet. So people just completely shifted after they tried it, because it was a big hurdle. It's like, I don't want to try it. Like, what if it's poopy water? And it's like, no, it's not poopy water. It's water literally from the wall, the same water you brush your teeth with. It's not coming from the bowl or the tank. And they're like, well, what if poopy water sprays everywhere? It's like, no, it pulls it perfectly, precisely into the bowl. Like, it's way cleaner than using dry toilet paper, like to wipe yourself and just sit on fecal matter all day, giving you like UTIs, hemorrhoids. Anyways, it's a whole thing. So it was an obvious solution during this period. Really changed the game for us. And from a marketing perspective, we just kept doing what we were doing, which is just saying like a bidet cleans you like in the, better than toilet paper anyway.
Is UGC big for y'all, user generated content?
Yeah. I mean, we did a whole campaign, a marketing campaign for like a title for the VP of Fecal Matters. And so we hired a role called the VP of Fecal Matters, who basically was going to get paid $10,000 to just record themselves taking a shit every day, using a bidet, using a tushy, and just like talking about the benefits and just like, you know, what they ate that day, like what kind of poop they had, like whatever, just like taking a shit and then talking about how much the difference between using a tushy versus not and all the other things. We had over 1,000 entries, 1,000 entries. And we chose the most epic woman, Lauren, to be our VP of Fecal Matters. And she was with us for 3 months and she was hilarious. If you go to our Instagram and scroll down a little bit, you'll see her doing the funniest videos on our Instagram about Tushy and her experience. And like, it was just absurd and hilarious.
Yeah. Well, so now that you guys are at this new normal, you're clearly hiring in marketing and growing that department quite a bit, and you're getting to apply all of these things that you've learned historically to those new hires. Would you have any advice for founders of companies, especially ones who might be more budget strapped, on, you know, who do you hire first when you're building a team, and how do you think about it, and how do you make sure before you necessarily hire them that they might be there?
Yeah. I mean, I think if it's early and you don't have really like very much money at all, and you haven't raised any money, like in the beginning we raised like, I don't know, like 400 grand or something small. And then we ended up raising 1.9 total or something like that. We just didn't raise a ton of money. So we didn't have but in the beginning it was just enough to get us off the ground. So we didn't really have a ton of money. So I think like what really gets good people on is like being a light for your product, like being a light for your idea. Like, you know, it's like light attracts people. And it's like, when you're like, you have no idea, this thing changed my life. Like, we have to bring it to America. The world's going to change when we bring this to America. Like, we're going to save millions of trees together. Like, we're going to, like, oh my God, is it like literally people who care about the planet, people who are new moms who have chapped vaginas, like people who have hemorrhoids, anal fissures, anal itching, people who have mobility issues who can't wipe their own butts, like people, like older people, like everyone can benefit from this product, and you and I can do this together. Like, and in the process, I'll give you, you know, X dollars or X, I mean, salary. But if we hit these numbers, you get a bonus, which will get you closer to market-based pay. Plus I'll give you like, you know, 1% vesting over 4 years or something like an equity, or if it's someone even more junior, less, you don't have to give a ton, just enough to get people enthusiastic about it. Cause that's going to be worth a ton if they really believe in your vision. And so you have to like really get people to believe in what you're doing, and you have to believe it so deeply yourself, which I do. Like when I, you know, finally got a bidet from, I'm half Japanese, half Indian. I've like been obsessed with them. And I finally got one after I had a thyroid issue and installed it and changed my life. I was like, oh my God, I need to bring the most epic version of this product, the best in class version of this product, the most affordable version of this product to America.
Right. Because it used to be a product only available. I mean, at least for me growing up, if you had a bidet, you were like living good. Like you were living on the wealthier side.
Or if you had like those weird things, you were like a weird, like what's wrong with you kind of vibe.
Oh, right.
There was always like, there was always that.
Well, I want to, so we have another question that just came in, and I want to ask this because this happens to me all the time too, which is I'm bombarded on LinkedIn from growth marketing agencies contacting me. Do you have any advice or thoughts on utilizing those kind of companies, and any specific red flags in your experience that you found out later that you just didn't see up front?
LinkedIn to me, like as far as like messages go, is like, you know, like a dumpster site, you know? And so like
gives me a lot of anxiety.
I haven't been on my LinkedIn messages for years. So what I suggest people do is find out who's running the departments, who's running the company, and DM them on Instagram or stuff like that, because they're much more likely that they'll actually see the message on Instagram, unless they're a massive like personality or something like that. But most of us are not. And you know, enough decent following, but not enough to like miss messages, or like you have, like I have my assistant who goes through my messages. And so I at least know like if anything is interesting coming in. And so, you know, I would always suggest don't try and message me on LinkedIn. It just doesn't.
Right. Well, so even outside of like the organizations reaching out, do you have any advice for people like trying to bring on an agency or work with an agency? Any advice that might help, or even anything that's a red flag?
Just referrals. Just like talk to people that you know. If you're an entrepreneur, the chances are you've met someone who's an entrepreneur who's doing really well, and you just reach out to them and say, "Hey, can you make an intro to the marketing agency you're working with?" And then, you know, oftentimes like what we do is we actually made a deal with our marketing agency that says anytime we bring someone in, you have to give us a 10% discount on our fees.
Oh, nice.
And so it's now like they get business development, new business in, and we get a discount on our monthly bill when we introduce them to a new client. So there are ways to make it a win-win where you're not just like, giving them like all the business and it's just not benefiting you. It's always good to have a win-win in that way. So,
right. Talk to the network.
Yeah. Talk to your network. I mean, it's like, that's it. Or message somebody that you admire, DM them on Instagram or in a place that's not like LinkedIn. That's like literally a garbage dumpster of like whatever. Like
I use Twitter DMs a lot. Those seem helpful.
Okay. Twitter DMs too. I don't check Twitter, but yeah. But for me personally, the only place I really have time to go to is Instagram, like a little bit to post.
Right.
And then I check my messages sometimes, or my assistant does, and relays back to me like what's relevant or interesting. But yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, better than LinkedIn, I think. And then finding people mostly through your network. Who do you know? Reaching out to people. Not being shy or afraid or like, I don't want to put you out, but can you, it's like, no, oftentimes like I like receiving those messages because I get the 10% discount, you know, for
right.
you and you start working with the agency that I'm working with and it's a win-win. And I can tell you with certainty that they've done a good job because I'm working with them for 3 years or whatever it is.
Right. Well, and I mean, eventually you might need help too, right? I mean, I have a bunch of folks who message me for content marketers in particular all the time, and I'll message them off to certain people or recommend them over to places like MarketerHire kind of thing. But eventually I'm going to need help. And I reach out to all of those same people where I'm like, hey, do you know somebody from SEO? Do you know somebody for email marketing, whatever it might be, that just tends to help. I appreciate your time so much today. Thank you. I don't have any other questions. It looks like we've kind of run through some of these Q&As. And unless you want to talk about, who you think the next genius creative person is outside of Ryan Reynolds, which I'm sure there's a bunch of folks out there. But thank you so much for joining us. And
yeah, I mean, I would say like a really like fun creative person that I kind of just recently kind of happened upon is Billie Eilish. I don't know if you watched the documentary.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But
I haven't watched the documentary, but my friends are very split between how they feel about it, which makes me think I'm gonna love it. So
yeah, she's amazing, and I think like she's 17, she's just super self-deprecating, but really fucking talented and
awesome
and creative, and like trusts her vision. And I think, one thing that everyone should do besides read my book, Disrupt Her, is to read this book, The Artist's Way. It kind of opens up new channels of creative thinking, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you, Miki. Again, thank you so much for your time chatting with us for an hour. Thank you to everybody who showed up. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. It's been very helpful. I also love see you in your hat. People on the internet talk about your amazing hats all the time. Even had a friend ask me to ask you, and I told her I was going to talk to you. She was like, please ask her like to measure her hat for us.
Yeah, it's 4-inch rim, 6-inch top.
Perfect. I'm gonna have to tell her, Sarah, it's coming for you. Awesome. Thank you so much again. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.